So, Brother Vernon, what inspired you to write this masterpiece, The Majesty of Woman?
Someone asked me a question earlier. I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and I was very used to people asking me, what inspired me to write the book. I'm so used to it, like the answer was always right at the tip of my tongue. So I was prepared to answer right, before they even completed the question. Okay. But this young lady today asked me, she said, Vernon, we were talking about my book, and she said, well, I don't want to ask you what inspired you. I want to ask you, what makes you an expert on that topic? Mm. She said, people write books all the time. What makes you an expert? And, why should I read your book? I mean, it sounds good. I love the title, but now I was a little unprepared to answer that question. So I did put some thought into it. Now I'll tell you first, Brother Donald, quite a few things went into inspiring me to write this material called The Majesty of the Woman. My wife, my children, I have four beautiful daughters. But also the heart that I was able to acquire, or the heart that I was able to gain through loving my people through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His teachings is a big proponent of those teachings, goes towards empowering, uplifting, and resurrecting our women, Black women in particular. But when she asked me what made me an expert, after I put thought into it, I told her, I said, sister, to be honest with you, I'm not an expert at all. I explained to her, based on what I was taught in my studies in the nation, that women were so complex. They were so dynamic in the magnitude of a woman's value. Realistically, no man is necessarily an expert on being able to teach on why women are valuable. We can add some weight and some content, some context, and something of substance to it. But I don't think no one is an expert, not unless we start to talk about God's Christ and His Messiah. And I started to delve into that a little bit. What really inspired me to write it was the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As a young man, Brother Donald, I want to say at least at the age of 10, I witnessed my mother in a very abusive relationship. Okay. I witnessed my sisters and my aunts in abusive relationships, verbally abusive, physically abusive. I watched men speak to them as if they had no value. And as a young man, I knew that, just me looking at my mother, she meant the world to me. And I understood the value that she had in her, nurturing and feeding and taking care of me as a child, and helping to rear me into becoming a young man and eventually into a man, and not having a father necessarily in the picture to assist her. So me seeing that, and then me being of age, and then me coming in contact with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, all of those things, when I put all those things into perspective, it really pushed and motivated me, and I was persistent in making sure that I gave something. I was able to contribute something to make sure that my daughters, my sisters, the women in my life, understood their value. Because even when I became a grown man or an adult, I saw that some of the women in my life didn't understand how valuable they were, and I wanted to make a contribution to that. In line with our minister in his How to Give Birth to a God lecture, I know that we're all familiar with that. But before I read the paragraph from the book, I just wanted to read two excerpts, or two quotes rather, from the How to Give Birth to a God two statements that our minister made. One of them was, and I quote, he said that women represent that power from God that nurtures, evolves, and shapes the destiny of a nation, right? And he also said that the woman has the ability to impress and write on the brains of the fetus while the brain is still forming. Yeah. Meaning that she's able to impress on that life that's forming inside her, and shape that life. And he was speaking about how evil and good can be predetermined. And he also went on to speak about how the woman her womb was God's laboratory. and how he produced his giants, his messengers, and his messengers and his servants. And the reason why I made those statements is because it's in line with, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of what I have, Brother Donald, my material. I started writing this book when I was 23. I'm 41 now. But it came from our leader. And to be quite honest with you and the listeners, the delay in that was confidence. I'm just being honest with you. And me and you had that conversation. So before I deviate, I'll go ahead and read this paragraph from the book.
Please do.
Pertaining to women. And this is actually from the introduction. It says, "We are securely clothed and confined within her flesh, covered from the world that awaits us. She sings to us. She transmits love to us while we're in the womb. Love that pulsates with each heartbeat. While in the womb, she talks to us and edifies us about the world that awaits us. While in the womb, she whispers forgiveness for any future shortcomings we may have. She manufactures and brings forth great men and women that will serve us and humanity. Men and women that will take us from where we are into that which is destined. She gives birth to our freedom fighters, our scientists, our astronomers, our sages, our prophets, and our messengers of God. She gave to us men and women that conceptualized ideas of going to the moon. Then she later produced those that made it a reality. Conceived in her womb were the men and women that revolutionized medicine and discovered ways to replace failing organs.
Come on.
She carries the hope, aspirations, possibilities, and promises of our future within her womb. When we see expecting women, we should awe at the sight of them. She bears the promise of life for ourselves, and through her we are assured. Assured of what? Continuity, another chance at succeeding, and progression through those coming after us. Last line is, the woman is a thing of beauty, majestic beauty, the rarest of any kind. The man is her protector. He empowers her, and he leads her as a king leads and upholds his queen. The greatest treasure in any king's kingdom is not his silver or gold, is not the mass of land and the resources under his command, nor is it his army. I say verily, verily it is his queen and his daughters.
Wow.